Did it?
Oh, I'm recording.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to give it just another few minutes here, just another minute or two. I see quite a number of people still jumping in. So give us another 45 seconds, another minute, and then we'll get started. So just hang tight for me. Okay. All right. So my name is Joel Sesko. I appreciate everybody taking the time to jump on here with me. Organic search is really, really important topic, and it's often overlooked in today's world where digital marketing, you hear a lot about silver bullets, and they debut, what seems like a new shiny object debuts almost every day. And I'm not dismissing or downplaying the importance of any other digital marketing strategy, platform, solution, but organic search and the various tactics utilized to increase organic traffic to your website, frankly, it's in a bit of a unique position. For one, organic search, and for the rest of the time, I'm just going to call it SEO. That's what it's commonly referred to as. So SEO, it's something that affects your dealership whether you do it or not. And that's a unique position to be in, because with most other digital marketing techniques, if you don't invest in it, it just isn't there. If you decide to not invest in paid search, you have no paid search ads. If you don't want to advertise on Facebook, no Facebook ads are going to be shown. If you only want to run on TV and do some radio spots, well, you ignore digital marketing altogether. Well, SEO is still going to get you, because SEO is there whether you want it or not, whether you believe in it or not. You're probably even paying for it as a dealership, as an add-on to your website package already. And then secondly, your SEO quality affects nearly every other marketing effort that you make. And I'm going to explain as we move through this how exactly that is, using real examples from a real dealership. So that makes SEO a necessary foundational part of any comprehensive marketing strategy, no matter how deeply you dive into digital marketing. Even if you just do traditional advertising, you have to pay attention to SEO as well. So before I move into the show and tell, which is going to be the bulk of this time, I'm going to get away from the slides. The big bulk of this is going to be actual show and tell using a live dealership. But before I get to that, let's take just a minute. I want to define a few terms just to make sure we're all starting from the same place, on the same page. So SEO, what is it? Why is it important? I'm not going to read that Wikipedia entry word for word, but essentially SEO is just, it's the process that you undergo to make sure your website is as visible as possible to various search engines on the internet. And there's a couple of them there. The big one obviously is Google. Bing's number 2, Yahoo's number 3, and then there's still some other ones that are around. I don't know if anybody still uses Alta Vista or not, but there are other search engines around, and you don't really have specific tactics just for Google. It's just general best practices that most of the search engines still take into account. So some benefits of SEO is, one, it's going to be, in quotes, free traffic to your website, because obviously SEO is something you're going to have to invest in, if not a lot of time, or if not a lot of money, because it's not expensive, especially compared to some other digital marketing or traditional marketing strategies. It will at least take some time, some focus, right? You're going to get you'll be able to generate more conversions from the current traffic that's already hitting your website. If you're doing paid search, especially say with Google, for example, if you are all of a sudden put a lot of effort into your organic rankings as well, you're going to see that result in sometimes lower cost per click. So your paid search budget will be able to stretch further. But also you're just going to stand out from the competition. And this piece is a little bit specific to automotive. I'm going to show you some examples where, due to some uniqueness within the automotive space, you end up with dealerships that literally look and say the exact same thing to a customer, right? And it's going to keep visitors on your website longer, which essentially you're going to provide content that's going to answer their questions on your website rather than having to leave your website and find that content, find the answer to that question, find the experience somewhere else, right? I think it's very important. So there's a couple different pieces to a holistic SEO strategy. And this piece is important because oftentimes dealerships think they're doing SEO, even the ones that they're not ignoring it. They definitely know they want it. They want to do it, and they sign up for a package. And then when you really dig into what they're paying for versus what they thought they were paying for, it's not the same thing. So I want to set that up. So part one of a holistic SEO is the technical side, what I call the technical side. So that's all the things that happen on your website as well as off of your website. So on-site and off-site SEO from a technical standpoint. So that is, for example, keyword research and implementation on your website. You want to rank for Ford, making sure Ford, the Ford keyword is on your page as appropriate, as an example. Alt tags on your images. I'm going to throw out several technical terms just so you know some of the variety of things that this can involve. Schema markup for your site, H1, H2, H3 tags, page titles, usability as defined by the search engine like Google. That's all on-site stuff. So that's all things that are on your website that affects how your website is going to rank organically on various search engines. There are also things that take place off of your website that point back and affect the authority that the various search engines place upon your website. So making sure that your site shows up correctly on various directories, both local and national. So a directory could be Facebook. Do you have a Facebook page? Does your Facebook page have a link that to your website on that Facebook page? Do you show up on yellowpages.com, yp.com? So various places that your site can show up. Does it show up there? Does it show up there accurately? That's some examples of some offsite SEO. So most of the time, if you hear someone talking about SEO, this is what they're talking about. This is the definition of SEO that most people operate from. But I want to open that up just a little bit because I think there is a definite need for a slightly wider view, and at least within this context, and let me explain why. So part two of what I think makes up a holistic SEO strategy is content creation. And this would not necessarily be true of every industry, but within automotive, because every new franchise dealership especially starts off with pretty much a website built from a template that looks real similar to a lot of other automotive websites, if not exactly the same in some cases. Content is a place where those websites fall sometimes. I'll give you some examples. So is there a page on your website that explains the benefit of financing versus leasing? Common question, right? Common question. It's totally understandable why a customer might want to ask that question. And if they can't get the answer to that on your website, they're going to go somewhere else to get that answer, or they're just going to stay away from leasing, which is what we see happen a lot of the time, right? So that's a perfect example of a question that could be answered by a piece of content, dedicated content on your website, just explaining the benefits of financing versus leasing. And that would have the added benefit of if someone searched for, say, if somebody in your area did a search for financing versus leasing, what are the benefits, that sort of search term, your website could show up in that search, right? So there's a lot of intrinsic benefits, overlapping benefits as well, from building out different content. So, okay, the three pieces to holistic SEO: on-site technical SEO, off-site technical SEO, and content creation to fill those gaps that come from having a templated, or at least a website that starts out based on a template set down by your manufacturer. Okay, so with that, let me jump over to some actual examples, and let's walk through this here. And hold on, I want to move this window over so I can see if there are any. If you have any questions, I didn't mention this, but if you have questions, feel free to type them in. I may not see them right away, but at the very least, at the end, if I haven't answered it just organically through going through this, I will circle back and answer any questions somebody has. So this is I picked this dealership at random. I picked no specific reason. I didn't pick a Ford store to beat up on Ford. I didn't pick this specific dealership because they've wronged me somehow. I just picked a regular dealership. There's a Ford, it happens to be a Ford store. So let me walk you through some of the stuff that I would typically look at. So to start with, let's look at some of those content holes that I mentioned. So this is a Ford store. So if you shop the way that somebody generally would, maybe they click on new inventory. There are plenty of cases where sometimes I mean the collective we that work within automotive, we forget that not everyone knows everything about every make and model of car ever created. So it's totally reasonable where, let's say somebody's driving down the road and they're thinking about getting a new vehicle, but they haven't decided what one yet. They're just kind of thinking, my check engine light just came on or what have you. Maybe it's time to get a new car. So they're driving along and they see a crossover or maybe an SUV or a car, it doesn't matter. But they're driving along and they say, ooh, that's a good looking crossover. That's a good looking SUV. What is that? And maybe they pull up close enough to where they can see the brand or the badge, and they say, oh, what is that, a Ford? Oh, man, that's nice looking. And they come home, they don't know that whether it's a Ford Escape or an Expedition or an Explorer. They don't live and breathe automotive like we do. So they very well might go home and what do they type into Google, right? They type in Ford crossover, new Ford crossover, new Ford SUV, something like that. Now, anybody that's doing paid search, I can pretty much guarantee, even if you're not doing paid search, I can pretty much guarantee if you're a Ford store, you're going to want to show up for that sort of search, right? Buy a new Ford crossover, something like that. You're going to want to show up for that because obviously that person has intent. They're interested, right? They just don't know the name of the vehicle that they saw, and that's, they can't be really blamed for that. If they'd searched for a Ford Edge, there's a page on this website to land that person on, right? So here's an example. Every website's a little bit different, but the general structure is pretty much the same between manufacturers. If someone searched for a Ford Flex, there's a page on this website to land that traffic, right? Usually it's probably research, right? That's a really nice page that talks about the Ford Flex, all the reasons about the Ford Flex. There's all the inventory for the Ford Flex that's in stock at this dealership. Good page. If somebody searches Ford Flex, I know if I would want that traffic to land, I know where I can land that traffic. Good page there. But what if somebody searches for the more general Ford SUV term, right? Where do you land that? There's no page for Ford crossovers, right? That maybe compares the Edge to the Escape to the Expedition to the Explorer or something like that. There's no pages for those more general terms. That's a blind spot for most manufacturers. When they put together these website templates, for whatever reason, they just assume that everybody knows the exact make and model that they want to buy. They don't tend to, the templated websites, unless you build out those pages yourself, they're just not going to be there, right? But you can see why it would be effective to have that page. So that's one example. Let me show you another example. There are places on your site also that just from let me find a good example here. There, we use a trade-in page. So again, this is not unique to this store. I've worked at stores. I've been guilty of this in the past as well. I used to work for dealerships. I would run marketing departments for multi-store groups, and while I learned a lot about SEO, I've been guilty of this. So what this dealership did is they signed up for the Edmunds trade-in tool. Edmunds popped a page on their website. They popped in this little widget, right? Which it's important to realize too that this widget doesn't live on this dealership website. Like this information, it doesn't live on this dealership's website. It's Edmunds information, and this gets a little technical, but I think it's worth looking at. Hold on, let me show you. If I inspect the element on this, most people have heard of what an iframe is. I think I got it way off there. There we go. So most people have heard of what an iframe is. Basically, an iframe is short for internet frame. It's a piece of code that lives on your website that basically pulls in information from some other site, right? So Google knows that. Google does not attribute the content within an iframe to your website. So if we take out that iframe, everything that's in blue there, let me exit back out of this. What does Google think this page contains, right? They have to look at this page and say, okay, well, what's on this page? If Google doesn't count any of this stuff in the middle as being a part of this page, then what's here? Well, almost nothing, right? So Google's going to look at the name of the the name of the page name. So if I hover over that there, that'll show up for you. Kistler Ford Sales Inc. That's a slight issue because I doubt the dealership refers to themselves as Kistler Ford Sales Inc. That's probably what their legal name is that Ford Direct plugged in. So that's one issue. I'll get to that here in a second. But this page doesn't have a unique page name. So that's issue number one. New Ford dealership in Toledo. Yes, that's accurate of the dealership as a whole, but it's not representative of what this page is, right? It's not a unique page title. This is the headline of the page, My Appraised Trade-In. I don't think that's very descriptive either, because you have to think of what Google has to show little snippets of what's on the page to get somebody to click on that page, right? And other than this, that's the only text that's on this page. Down bottom, there's a disclaimer, right? It's on every page of the website. So Google looks at that as thin content, and in this case, it's almost non-existent content. This page, let's say somebody searches for, here, I'll show you. I'll do an actual example. So let's say I'm in this dealership's backyard. I live there, zip code 43615. If no one's ever seen this before, I recommend you play around with this tool. It's pretty useful in a lot of different cases. It's the Google Ads preview tool, and at the end, I'm gonna pop up during question and answer time. I'll pop up a slide that has all the different tools with links to them, so that you don't have to copy down as I'm doing it. There'll be time for that there at the end. I'll put it on the screen. But you can put in, okay, Google, treat me as if I'm in this zip code 43615, the same zip code as the dealership. Give me English. Just you tell Google what you want it to treat you at. So give me English results. Treat me as if I'm on a desktop. And let's say I'm somebody in that. I don't understand. My Google Home thought I was talking to it. Sorry about that. So let's say I have, let's say I want to sell my Ford F-150. All right. Now, somebody could totally do that search, right? And does it directly apply to a Ford store? Well, sure. Like I assume if you know, I know how hard it is to get quality pre-owned inventory, and you got to go to the auction and usually pay more than what you want to, that sort of thing. Everybody knows it's cheaper to buy those trades directly. So if somebody's selling a Ford F-150, if I'm a Ford store, I definitely want my used car buyer to have a shot at that. But if I'm in this dealership's backyard, I make that search. What do I see? I see some irrelevant paid search ads, because those are about buying a new F-150, not really relevant. Buy any car, sell my Ford F-150 to a leading Ford buyer. Yeah, like that's a good organic return. Sell a used or damaged Ford F-150, sell your junk F-150. So you see, this dealership doesn't show up, right? And of course they don't show up, because it's basically a blank page as far as Google's concerned. So that's another example of how this sort of content can affect your Google rankings. Let me show you another one. Now, I've shown this to a lot of general managers, dealership owners. I show this sort of thing, and frankly, they usually get pretty mad. They don't typically get mad at me. Sometimes it's a little bit of a shoot the messenger situation, but it's important to remember how these websites come to be. Ford has thousands of stores, and Ford requires you to be on their website platform. And this is not a beat up on Ford. Pretty much every manufacturer does the same thing. And if you don't customize what's on that website, you're going to get the same content as everyone else. Here's an example of that. So let me grab a string of text from this dealership's About Us page. All right. So the About Us page, it should be, if nothing else, this page should be talking about the dealership, right? Should be about the dealership, what's unique about them, what's the benefits of doing business there, how long have they been in the community, what causes they donate to, or all of that sort of stuff. That's the perfect place for this. If I jump over to Google and if I paste that string of text, let me show you what I did there. So if I open quotation mark, paste that content in, and close quotation mark, what that's doing, for anyone that doesn't know, that tells Google that I want it to return to me every website that has that exact string of text. Okay. That's what putting that inside of a quotation gives you. So in that, you know, there are 27,000 other websites that have that exact string of text. Now, most of these are going to be way far away. You know, it's unlikely that the same person would be on two of these websites in all reality. Connecticut, Iowa. This dealership, Kistler Ford, is in Toledo. All right. This dealership's in Tiffin. It's a Ford dealership in Tiffin. Tiffin is probably, I don't know, 40 minutes away from Toledo, maybe 40 minutes away. So it's entirely realistic that one person might visit both of those websites, right? And look at the same issue, right? Tiffin Ford Lincoln Inc. Wonder how that Inc. got there. It's certainly not what the dealership calls itself. It's just part of the standard setup for this website. So sometimes you hear people go overboard on this issue. Obviously, that's duplicate content, and anyone that's heard anything about what Google does or doesn't like knows that Google does not like duplicate content on multiple websites, and that's true. Google does not like that. Some people go overboard and will almost say that like your website's going to get blacklisted by Google because you have duplicate content or something like that. And well, yeah, technically, I think in theory that's possible. It is possible in theory. Google's not going to blacklist your website because you never changed the content on your About Us page or on your service page or on your tires page. Those are all very common places to see duplicate content. What it really is it's a missed opportunity, right? This is a missed opportunity for this dealership to explain to a prospective customer, why they should do business with them and not someone else. So check your own website for this. I'll show you a couple different places to look at this. About Us is always a good one, and you want to avoid. Here's what you're avoiding. You're avoiding the dealership name, right? Because that's just dynamically inserted by essentially technology, right? So that's just swapped in to different websites. It's not unique, and Google knows it's not unique because it's just the way that the websites are built. Same with brand. Avoid brand, the dealership name, the brand name. Avoid geo names, because again, those are just dynamically inserted into the website. Choose the in-between stuff. Choose the filler stuff. And I usually choose parts of two different sentences just because the likelihood of two different sentences side by side being exactly the same across websites, just by happenstance, is pretty small. So I'm trying to be intellectually honest about the way that I do this. So is proud to be one of the premier dealerships in the area. From the moment you walk into our showroom, you know that our commitment to blah, 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 right? That is a blah statement. Anybody reading that knows that that's a blah statement. And Google's not going to reward this dealership because they have a blah cookie cutter statement on their website that is shared by 27,000 other websites. At the very least, it's a missed opportunity. Okay. So those are some examples of what I look for on-site activity. Again, page title, you can see the page title is exactly the same on this page as it was on the other page. It's probably the same on literally every page. Let's look here. Oh, that one's a little bit different, just a little. So, yeah, it can be better, right? Not super descriptive. So, okay, let's move on past that. Let's look at another SEO strategy, or another piece of the SEO puzzle called name, address, and phone number alignment. So what that is, and I'm using it publicly, all the stuff I'm showing you is publicly available. None of this is like a paid for tool. This is all out there. It's easy to find this stuff, and I'm showing you exactly how I would look for it. I have access to other tools as well, but I want to show you in a way that you can do your own analysis right on your own site. So this is Moz, they're very well known in the SEO community. Kistler, Ford. So you just type in your name, right? Toledo, there we go. What this does, it actually shows you a number of different things that's useful in reputation management and some other places as well. What I'm going to focus on specifically is the inconsistent tab. So this is what Google is saying. This is what this tool is essentially saying. This is the dealership. This is the information. This is the gospel right here. Most people don't understand that, what does Google want? When they're choosing who to show and who not to show, what's the point? Like, what is that based on? Well, it's based on making sure that whoever's doing the search, so the customer to Google, in Google's eyes, the customer is having the best user experience possible. That's what Google wants. And part of that positive user experience is that Google is showing them correct information, because nothing will lead to a bad experience sooner and somebody switching to, if you're talking about Bing, someone switching to Google. If you're talking about Bing, or if you're talking about Yahoo, somebody switching to Bing. If a search engine shows wrong information, that's a real good way to lose users, right? At least the confidence of users. So what they want is they're still based on machine learning. So if somebody searches for, closest Ford store to me, or hours of closest Ford dealership, or something like that, Google has to crawl the web to compile that sort of answer, and it wants to make sure that the answer that it shows is correct. The way that it ensures that is by looking at a whole bunch of different online directories. And what it's looking for is consistency, because if Google can look at a bunch of different places and see the same consistent answer, all of those different places, like maybe for the phone number, for the address, for all those things, if they can find a consistent answer, they can feel confident that the answer that they are showing customers on their website is correct. And Google wants that. They don't want 80%. They don't want 90% consistency, and they want 100% consistency for your name, your address, your phone number, and your website too. So let's, again, I say it shows several different things, but let's look at the inconsistencies. That's what I'm focused on here. So some of these you've heard of, some of these you haven't. You do this for your own dealership, you might find none. If you find none, great job for you. You might find 12. You might find a whole bunch. And some of them you're going to heard of, and you will have heard of. Some of them you will not have. But that's not really the point. Like Facebook, we've all heard of Facebook. Newstar, I bet none of you have heard of that. This is HotFrog. I'm going to bet none of you have probably ever been on hotfrog.com. But that's not really the point, because the point is that Google goes to those pages, right? If Google goes to it, it doesn't really matter if you do, or your friends do, or people at your dealership do, if they're familiar with it. That's not the point. The point is that Google goes to it, and they want to see your information consistent across the internet. So one big problem, I said I'd get to this, is that obviously this dealership does not refer to itself as Kistler Ford Inc. They refer to themselves as Kistler Ford. I guarantee Kistler Ford Inc. is their technical legal entity name. I'm sure that's what it is. So when they filled out, whatever contract they have with Ford Direct, or just for the Ford franchise in general, I'm sure their legal name on that agreement is Kistler Ford Inc. I'm sure it probably is, but that doesn't mean that that's what they call themselves, right? So, but that's what Google thinks they're called, and that's what it needs to be: Kistler Ford Sales Inc. If that's what Google thinks it is, then it needs to be that way everywhere, or they can work on changing what Google thinks it is. You can do that too. But so here's inconsistencies. And now this is a small inconsistency. Let me show you this. So quadruple 5 Central Ave, abbreviated AVE. Toledo, okay? Quadruple 5 West Central Avenue. So one, there is no west here. There is here, there is here, there is here. Avenue spelled out. Avenue spelled out here, avenue spelled out here, avenue spelled out here, avenue abbreviated here. That's an inconsistency. And I know that seems awfully nitpicky of Google, but it's a machine, right? It's not a human. All it sees is that this is what it should be. It's not that inconsistent, right? So they need to be consistent. Whichever one it is, whether it's abbreviated or not, whether it's west or not, that's less of an issue. The issue is just making sure that whatever it is, it's that way everywhere. So do this test for your own store. See what you find. Sometimes I find incorrect web addresses. I've found for different Ford stores, I found Ford.com, the manufacturer site, in place of the dealership URL. I found that sometimes. Find old domains that maybe have been transferred. There's all kinds of weird stuff you'll find here. Now, fixing these things is a little bit more involved. There's a different process for each one of these pages that you would find, how to fix it, how to get the accurate information there, how to claim that listing, update it. That's where you will save yourself a lot of time and headache going with a partner that has those sort of automated access and processes in place. Just take my word for it, because I've done it the other way before, and that was, in all honesty, probably my least favorite job of running marketing for multi-store dealerships, was trying to keep those consistent, because it's a different process for every single website, and there are tens, if not hundreds of them. So you end up with quite the big spreadsheet of all the names and passwords for all those different places. So, but do your own test, see what you find out here. All right, now a couple more things. Let me jump back. You'll see what I'm gonna do here, and I'll explain as I'm doing it. But I'm gonna grab the dealership URL, and there are a couple different places. I talk about Bing, I talk about Yahoo, and obviously people do use those search engines, but realistically, Google's the biggest one. So let's talk about what Google wants. It's not mysterious. Contrary to popular belief, Google is not mysterious about what they want to see out of your website. They specifically tell you what they want to see, and they tell you in multiple different ways in multiple different places. And they have publicly available websites for you to test your site, and it will tell you specifically where it succeeds and where it fails. So this is one: test your mobile site speed. Oh, of course I have to do this. Verify. Okay. And here's another one. One's more technical than the other, but they both give similar information, but packaged together in different ways. So I think they're each useful to look at for their own reasons. So I'll wait for this one to load because the other one actually takes longer. So while this is loading, we're essentially just saying, okay, you want certain things out of my website. Tell me what those things are. Tell me what I'm not doing right, and tell me how to fix it. And Google says, okay, I'll tell you that exactly. So both for your mobile version and your desktop version, different scoring, different suggestions. Level of optimization, page speed. Okay, those are technical numbers, I know, but the other page actually breaks that down into an easier format. So I'm going to skip over that for now. But then from an optimization standpoint, like, what could I do better with this site? Well, and frankly, I don't know what a lot of this means because I'm not that guy. I sold cars for a living. I did not, I don't know how to code. I know just enough to get by. But there's some examples, right, where they tell you specifically, hey, do these things, eliminate render blocking, JavaScript, and CSS, and above the fold content. I don't know how to do that. If you're a general manager or an owner of a store, you likely don't know how to do that. Frankly, your marketing person probably doesn't know how to do that. I don't know how to do it. But that's one of those pieces where your webmaster, or if you are paying for SEO services, those guys definitely should know how to do it. They definitely should know how to do it. So it's just having that conversation and looking at what Google says you should do and then doing it, right? Like, there's specific examples all over the place here. Now, let me jump over to the mobile websites because this should be done. Okay. So this is looking at the mobile site specifically. And this is really important because this goes back to customers having a good experience on Google. Google knows via Google Analytics tracking across the web, as well as just how whether or not people bounce back to a search results page on Google after they've chose within a short period of time of choosing a selection. They track that because so Google's been able to figure out that when shockingly, people don't like to wait for things, especially on their mobile phone. I'm sure that's surprising to no one, but it bears mentioning because sometimes we forget it with our mobile site design. So what they do is they can look and say, okay, this page takes so long to load, and they can average that against all the other similar websites, how long those take to load, and then they can calculate what the bounce rate is and kind of isolate out and make a direct correlation page load time to bounce rate, to expected bounce rate. So unsurprisingly, if a mobile site takes a long time to load, it's going to experience a higher bounce rate. And again, Google knows that if somebody bounces, means they didn't get what they wanted out of the website, they weren't happy with that website, they bounced back to try another one. That's not a good user experience, right? And Google is going to, all things remaining equal, they're probably going to push that page down the page one rankings, maybe even on the page two, maybe lower, right? So that's really what this says. So time to load, and they use 3G as a standard. I know if you're in a major metro area, if you're in Atlanta or Los Angeles or San Francisco, I know 3G sounds ridiculous, but I live in small town Ohio. 3G is not a ridiculous standard. There are a lot of dealerships that need to operate with 3G in mind, just from a realistic standpoint. But so they use 3G as a standard, and then they benchmark it. Took 11 seconds to load. If you don't think 11 seconds is a long time, by the way, I've shared these results with different dealerships, and some say, well, I don't feel like that's all that long. I sit in silence for 11 seconds and just stare at each other and see if that's not a long time. It is, especially when you're holding your phone waiting for it to load, right? So we're a little impatient these days. And then Google will take all the number crunching that they do, all the average values that they have, And they know that based on 11-second load time, they're saying this dealership can probably expect to have somewhere around a 30% bounce rate just because their mobile site is slow. So if you know, I don't have time to show you this, but if you have the knowledge of where to find this, go into your Google Analytics, isolate just your mobile traffic, and see what your bounce rate is for your mobile traffic on your website. Just isolating that mobile traffic. If for this dealership, I don't know what it is. I don't have access to the Google Analytics, but let's just say it's, average is somewhere in the 35% range. Let's say this dealership, they're a little slow on site load time. Let's say it's 40%, right? Well, Google says that 3 out of 4 of those bounces, it's just because their site takes so long to load, right? So if you could speed it up just a little bit, it's not always about just getting more organic traffic. What if you could provide a better experience for the traffic that you're already getting and just convert them at a higher rate, right? SEO can help you do that. There's a couple different tabs down here. So because Google is so ubiquitous as far as website analytics and tracking goes via Google Analytics, they will benchmark. When you set up Google Analytics, you have to tell Google what industry your website operates within. Vehicles is the automotive category. And then it will benchmark your site against, just in aggregate, not one dealership to another, but in aggregate, where are the top performing dealerships, right? In that 3 to 4 second range, 5 to 8 seconds, that's, fair range. And then where does your dealership stand up? I've seen, just so you know, I've seen as quick as, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a 3 second before. I've done, not hundreds, but I've done a lot. I've looked at a lot of websites with this tool. I've seen probably as low as 4 seconds, maybe 3, can't remember. I've seen as high as 30 seconds. Also, if your website doesn't pass, this is actually a usability test. It's not just a speed test, it's also a usability test of your mobile website. There are some websites that will fail this test, and you'll see a big red box on the screen that says your website does not pass the Google usability test. Find out why. That is a big issue. If you do this test and you find that, you need to talk to your website provider right away. That is a bad deal. Google will suppress your listings on organic search if you fail the mobile usability test. That's not good. And then essentially it says, well, if you could just make a few tweaks, right? And it says specifically what it is. If you just made these few tweaks, very similar to what's on that other site that I just showed you, make those few tweaks and you'll increase your page load time by X number of seconds. And just imagine what that will do for your bottom line just by reducing your bounce rate and keeping more of the traffic that you're paying so dearly to generate in the first place, right? So that's those are the obvious places that dealerships tend to fall flat with SEO. I'm going to switch back over to the slide. I'm going to open it up for any questions that you may have, and put those on the page there. So any questions as far as anything that I've talked about? I'll give you a minute or two to type it out. But if you have any questions on SEO, where to look, what tools I used, anything like that, let me know, and we'll get them answered. Okay, I see one question. This question reads, I have an SEO, one of those SEO packages through my website provider. What are your feelings on those? Most dealerships actually have an SEO package as a part of their website. So this is my feeling on it. You pay for your website on a monthly basis, right? Some dealerships pay, it depends on how much it is, depends on the company, depends on the preferred vendor program if you're in one of those. But anywhere between, let's say, $1,000 to $2,500 a month. Let's say you're paying $2,500 a month for your website, and then oftentimes a line item on that, a little addendum is maybe a $500 SEO package or something like that. But think of what that really means. So you're paying one significant fee for the website in general. Now you're paying for that website, and then you're paying additional fee to the exact same company to, I don't know, make it good. Is that, I don't know. That sounds harsh, but I don't know another way to really look at that. So that's something to think about. If the website isn't, if you're not getting anything out of that initial fee, what's the chances that it's really going to be done well if you throw an additional $500 at the problem? I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. There are a number of another part is just because you do a good website, or like a lot of those websites are really, really good, but that does not necessarily mean that you do good search engine optimization, good keyword research, good content creation, good custom content creation. Not necessarily the same thing. So, and another piece there is that most of the time, when you have the website and you have the little package added on for SEO, that is not comprehensive SEO. Most of the time it is on-site SEO only, which is only one of the 3 legs of that tripod that I went over earlier. So it does not include any link building, you know, domain, or not domain, but directory submissions, those sort of things. Typically doesn't include any offsite SEO at all, and it doesn't include that custom content creation. So not only, that's another piece of it, is one, what's the quality that you're really getting there? Are they doing a good job on the on-site portion? If they are, then maybe it's, you know, of use to look at expanding. But if not, maybe it's time to look at somebody that doesn't focus on SEO and let the website guys do the focus on the structure and architecture of the website. That's a good question, though. Any other questions? Okay. Well, with that, I appreciate everybody jumping on here. If you have any questions, a couple ways to get in contact down at the bottom. Check out those tools, run it for your sites. If you find anything really interesting, let me know. I'll be interested to hear back from you. So thanks again. Everybody have a good rest of the week.